Okay, hi everyone. So my name is Kestra. I'm a second year medical student at Cardiff, and I'm just going to talk to you a bit today about my journey into medicine and kind of the things that I thought were quite influential in my medical application, and tell you a bit about the things that I found helped and the things that I did wrong, and hopefully I can provide some advice and tips to make you a more competitive applicant. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just talk a bit about my own journey. I had quite an unusually smooth journey into medicine. I was actually helped by Medic Mentor, who were incredibly supportive. I had, like I said, a super easy journey. I got 4 interviews and 3 offers, and obviously chose Cardiff because Cardiff's awesome. But yeah, so I'm just going to talk about the different parts of the application process and what I did. So the first thing I was going to start with is work experience, which is an important part of the application. But I know it's something that a lot of students find challenging to get because hospitals have a lot of restrictions for ages. Doctors are busy and it's hard to find people to go around shadowing. I was actually really lucky. My dad is a neuropathologist, and so he was amazing at helping me find some work experience. And I would say that if you did have any family members or friends of friends of friends, or anyone that you know in any kind of healthcare profession, then trying to get work experience with them is ideal. That doesn't mean that if you don't have those kind of connections that you're disadvantaged. It is a little bit unfair because it's easier. But there are lots of different ways to get work experience, whether that is applying through the hospital, and also something a lot of people don't quite think about is the fact that medical work experience isn't everything. It's with work experience, it's all about quality and not quantity. So, for example, whether it be paid work, whether it be work in a charity shop, whether it be work in a hairdresser's or in a care home, all of those show the same skills that you learn from being in a hospital. And having that insight into other healthcare professionals as well, for example, shadowing nurses, shadowing physiotherapists, occupational therapists, is all really important. So there are different kinds of work experience you can get. There's primary care, so that's kind of in a general practice. There's secondary care, which is in a hospital. Universities quite like to see a long-term commitment. So, for example, volunteering in a hospice kind of shows that. It shows that you're not just doing it because of the application, that you can commit and, work with someone for a long period of time. It shows empathy, motivation, all those things. Volunteering, another really important part of work experience, again showing empathy and willingness to give up your time to help other people. One of the work experience you can lost you there. One of the work experiences that a lot of people, very few people get is work experience abroad. Again, I was very lucky with that one, that I studied AS German and went on a German exchange and actually got the opportunity to go to a hospital for a few days. But like I said, that's incredibly difficult to get, and it's absolutely not compulsory in any way. And then the other kind of work experience is paid work. And this is a part on your UCAS form that a lot of people leave blank. And it can actually be really important. Like I said before, if any of you have ever worked in a pharmacy, think how amazing that could be to talk about. Personally, I worked as a gymnastic coach throughout my 6th form. And honestly, I think that played the biggest role in my application. I spoke about it in my personal statement and in every single interview. Because if you think about the kind of comparisons you can make between being a coach and being a doctor, for example, responsibility, professionalism, working with vulnerable people, working with children, having access to confidential information, teamwork, teaching. So do you see what I mean? There are a lot of skills that non-medical work experience can demonstrate. But I went a bit over the top with my work experience. I did work experience in a general practice. I did work experience in a hospital. I did volunteer for a care home, and I volunteered in a hospice, and I volunteered with the Alzheimer's Society. So I went a bit over the top and tried to do everything. And what I wanted to say here was that I really didn't speak about half of those things, and it really isn't worth, the time and effort it takes to do these things for the sake of medicine, when actually, everything that I needed to demonstrate, I could have talked about through my coaching and perhaps my work in a hospital. So what I want to say here is reiterate that it's quality, not quantity. Again, just to demonstrate that, I learned so much more coaching children with disabilities for in a 2-hour session than I did the entire week I spent in a general practice, where I was doing admin for a week and learned very, very little. So in terms of work experience, I know it's hard, and but just there are a lot of options out there, and especially with the volunteering, people are desperate for volunteers, especially long-term kind of committed volunteers. So working in care homes, working in hospices, all those kind of things are ideal. One of my other tips about work experience is make sure that you take a journal with you, and write down any kind of cases or particular patients that you found really interesting or that you think you learned a lot from. Because believe me, you will forget a lot, especially when you're kind of building this work experience up over several years. So definitely make sure you write down what you do every day. The other thing with work experience, it's quite important to keep like contact numbers or emails of the people that you volunteer with, because at some interviews they may ask for proof, and they may say that they might contact those organizations for proof. I think that's all I wanted to say on work experience. Okay. So one of the other parts of the medical application process is extracurricular activities, because medical schools want you to be well-rounded, and again, I went a bit over the top with my extracurricular activities, and really tried to do a lot more than I could, especially when I'm sure a lot of you know that A-levels are hard work, and trying to kind of find time to do extra stuff, it can be difficult. And again, the moral of this story is you need to pick a few projects that you really enjoy and that you excel at, and that make you unique, because at the end of the day, Duke of Edinburgh is fantastic, it's amazing, but most students will have done the Duke of Edinburgh. And saying in an interview that you did the Duke of Edinburgh and learnt teamwork isn't unique. However, if you did pick a specific anecdote and said, in my Duke of Edinburgh, we got lost, it was getting dark, some of our team members were dehydrated, and you talk about how you took a leadership role and made sure that everybody was okay and that you had a number to call, things like that make it a lot more kind of individual and personal, and that's great. But the point here is, don't do things for the sake of medicine. Do them because you love doing them and you think that you learn a lot from them, and yeah, there's something you enjoy. So I was a gymnast. I was a competitive acrobatic and before that artistic gymnast, and some of the things I spoke about in my personal statement were that I represented Lancashire in one competition. Other things include, when I was saying before about things that make you unique, in one of my interviews, I started talking about how I set up a ukulele club. But it's interesting, and when they've been sitting there all day listening to people talking about the Duke of Edinburgh or the same kind of things, something like that is a bit more interesting. Other things that I did, things like being a prefect. So I was the deputy head girl in my high school, and any other positions of responsibility. So I was the vice chair of the Med Society in sixth form. So they're all fantastic things to talk about. Again, any other sports hobbies you have, any music hobbies you have, like I said, if they're things that you enjoy doing, then it's great. One note with these, with both the work experience and the extracurricular, is make sure that you are writing them all down, and make a huge master list of everything, because like I said, you might forget that one thing you did that one time, and when you come to write your personal statements or revise for interview, then having that list is really, really helpful. Okay. Okay, so then I'm going to talk about supercurricular. Supercurricular is just a way that I categorize everything that is on top of academic curriculum. So kind of like your academic awards or prizes or projects. So in this, things like, for example, the Biology Olympiad, which was something I did, or the Cambridge Chemistry Challenge would come under here. Other things, if there are any projects in school, for example, I did the Rolls-Royce Science Prize, which involved me we had to teach sessions to younger students based on global science issues. And then we had a project where we went into the university and did some fun stuff with solar power and then presented it. So kind of science fairs and things like that are fantastic, because the skills you can talk about there are public speaking, presenting, research, teaching. They can be really helpful. What else? So one of the biggest things, again, along with my coaching, the other thing that had a huge impact on my application was the Japan Super Science Fair, which was something I wasn't originally going to apply for. I was bogged down with tons of A-level work and just thought, you know what, I'll just apply. Maybe it'll be fun. And basically, it was the Japan Super Science Fair is the biggest science fair in Japan for students. And my school had the opportunity to kind of complete a science project, and then we all went over to Japan for 5 days and met students from 21 different countries, and we got to present our project and listen to other people's projects, and it was one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And you know what, my project wasn't even on anything medical related. My project was on biofuel, and nothing about it was medical related, really. What I spoke about in my interviews was how amazing it was to meet so many different people, and we had kind of like a cultural festival kind of thing, and it was just fantastic. And being able to do that research and go and present it internationally is something that I'd love to do one day. And in medicine there are so many opportunities to do research and to present it everywhere, in conferences everywhere. So that was a really good link, and something that I spoke about a lot because it was amazing. Other things that you can do under kind of super curricular conferences. So I think my school advertised that we had that there was a National Association of Medical Research conference that was actually hosted in Cardiff, and I had to write an essay, which I did on post-antibiotic era, I think, and that was selected, and I got to go to the conference and I didn't understand anything in the conference, but I went and sat down and listened and took notes. But again, that's something really important to talk about in terms of research, and in terms of writing essays and being selected competitively is quite a good talking topic as well in interviews, especially because I'd done that in Cardiff. It was kind of ideal to talk about at my Cardiff interview as well. Other things under supercurricular, a lot of these kind of relate to research. So I don't know whether any of you have heard of the EPQ, Extended Project Qualification. I know there are various versions of these in Wales, perhaps in Scotland as well. But these are basically, this was a 5,000 word essay that I wrote, and it kind of counts as half an AS level. Again, I know a lot of people don't do ASs anymore. But really, it wasn't the fact that it was a qualification that was useful. It was the fact that I chose a topic, a medical topic for once. I did mine on mitochondrial transplantation, which is, I mean, for those of you who do biology, mitochondria, the little kind of batteries in your cell, it was about kind of the DNA in those and how some people who have abnormal mitochondrial DNA, it's kind of a treatment for that. Some of you might have heard it kind of advertised in the media as 3-person babies, which was something I found super interesting, and wrote this 5,000 word essay on it. And it was quite a current news topic at the time. So if ever in any of my interviews kind of the question came up that was like, have any kind of current news topics caught your eye? I'd written a 5,000 word essay on this, so I could talk for a long time about kind of the ethics, about the science, which is fantastic. And I could use that to answer quite a lot of questions. For example, if they ask me, are there any like diseases or treatments that you find quite interesting? Or can you tell me about the importance of research? In which case I could bring in the fact that I've done all this research, and I've written essays and things like that. So that's quite helpful. And I'm not saying you have to do an EPQ at all. But it was just something I did that helped in terms of a talking topic. And I'd say that if you had the time and the opportunity, and it was something that you wanted to do, then doing like a research project like that would be quite helpful, as long as you chose the topic kind of strategically, in that it was a medical topic, perhaps an ethical topic, and something that was quite cutting edge in research. And the other thing with supercurricular is reading medical books. And I know a lot of people who write in their personal statement, I read The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, or things like that. I did actually read that book. I think that was the only book I read, because I was told that you need to do some wider reading. And so I did. And to be honest, I didn't really enjoy reading, kind of those academic books, really. But I did it because I had to, and to be honest, I never mentioned it at all in my entire application process. It got cut out of my personal statement, it never came up at interview, and it really wasn't required at all. So if you are genuinely really interested in some medical books and you've read them and you know them inside out and you feel like you could talk about them spontaneously at interview, then, definitely, you can mention those books in your personal statement or bring them up at interview. But I definitely wouldn't say that reading books is at the top of your priorities in terms of building up that kind of CV. And yeah, same with supercurricular, add these to your list as well because they are helpful when you come to your personal statement. Yeah, so I think that's kind of the 3 categories I'd say for building up your personal statement and the things you want to talk about. Like I said, I went a bit over the top with a lot of the stuff I did, but if you do have a few kind of big projects that show a diverse range of transferable skills, then you're pretty okay. Okay, so this is you're kind of building these up. I kind of started quite early. I started in year 11, I think. So I decided I wanted to do medicine in year 10 and then did my first work experience that summer. I finished my GCSEs, which is quite early. But personally, I found that a lot more helpful because I had a lot of my work experience finished by the time I'd kind of finished AS levels. Because that last year of A levels, you really want to focus on grades. So trying to get stuff done early is ideal. To be honest, I think I dropped a lot of my extracurricular activities in year 13. I didn't do much at all apart from study because, I'll tell you a bit more about it later, but I had my offers. And at the end of the day, if you don't get your grades, then, you don't get that confirmed offer. So focus on your grades as well. Okay, so then there's this issue of choosing medical schools. And I think people have different ways of doing this. It can be kind of hard trying to narrow down. I think there are 36 medical schools, but probably the best way to do it is process of elimination. So you have a list of all the medical schools. There are books you can buy that kind of go through all the medical schools and talk about what kind of course they are. So whether they're PBL, traditional, integrated, they go through kind of the length of the course or what the course requirements are. And you need to kind of go through the medical schools and eliminate, first of all, the ones you don't like, that you don't want to go to. They may be too far away, and you may just not like the sound of them. You may have gone to an open day and just disliked it. Cut those out. You don't want to spend 5 years, 6 years, the rest of your life in a place that you don't like being. So the next job is cutting out places that, so with medical school, you kind of have to play to your strengths. At the end of the day, it's where you can get in. So you need to cut out places whose requirements don't match your strengths. For example, I did the UK CAT, which I'm going to talk about a bit later, and didn't do that well in it. I was kind of below average. So I needed to cut out all the medical schools that wanted a high UK CAT, which cut out quite a lot of them. So choose in terms of your strengths. Some medical schools will look at personal statement more. Some medical schools, if you know you're not good at interviewing, Edinburgh doesn't interview. So thinking about things like that, and also kind of the length of the course. Some medical schools like St Andrews have a compulsory intercalated year, so they're 6 years instead of 5. Process of elimination. Anyway, you should be left with universities that you kind of like and that would accept you based on your grades, based on your personal statement, your interview, and your university entrance exams. And then it's just choosing which ones of are your favorite. But yeah, choose your medical schools strategically because it will increase your chances of getting a place if you apply based on your strengths. Okay, so then you have your entrance exams. So all universities now require either the UK CAT or the BMAT. And I personally didn't do the BMAT. I avoided looking at any universities that required the BMAT because, like I said, A-levels are hard work and I didn't want to revise for an exam on top of that, especially because the BMAT is, it's kind of all the sciences, and I hadn't done physics since year 10. So physics was not something I wanted to revisit ever in my life. So I avoided the BMAT. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. It's, you know, completely your own choice based on what universities you want to go to. And in fact, it can be beneficial having it, you know, as a backup. If you don't do so well in the UK CAT and you do in the BMAT, then applying to more BMAT universities might be better. There are 2 dates for the BMAT now, I believe, so either September or November. But the application for medicine needs to be in by the 15th of October. So ideally you want to do the BMAT in September, so you get the results before you send off your application. However, Oxbridge, I think, require, or maybe it's just Oxford, require BMAT in November only. So do your research into that. Anyway, the UK CAT I'm a bit more experienced on. The UK CAT's a weird exam. It's kind of like an IQ test. It's got verbal reasoning, like figuring out shape patterns. It's got a bit of coding, situational judgment, and it's usually done in the same kind of place that you would do a driving theory test. And it's, yeah, like I said, it's weird. I hated the UK CAT. And I think, yeah, I think all universities want that now if they don't want the BMAT. Okay, the UK CAT, I would say, so like I said, BMAT is done in September or November of the year that you apply. So you will be in year 13. UK CAT is, I think they're open for booking in like May time. But you can book whatever time you want to do it after that. I would recommend that you do it towards the end of the summer of year 12, so before you go into year 13, because like I keep saying, A-levels are really hard and you don't want to be doing more work whilst you're trying to keep up on A-levels as well. So I spent that summer of year 12 studying for the UK CAT, and then did the UK CAT. And at the end of summer, still didn't do very well, but I did better having studied than I would have having not studied, which leads me on to my next point, is that these entrance exams you can study for, and you probably should study for. There are tons of books out there to kind of practice questions on. And like I said, they're like exams you've never really done before, so you need to kind of have an idea of what they consist of and how they work. One of my best pieces of advice is check out the websites, especially the UK CAT website has some amazing information about how the UK CAT works, and it has some example questions, and you can use the, so you aren't allowed to take in your own calculator, you have to use the calculator provided on the computer in the UK CAT. It's done on the computer, by the way. And just kind of getting to know how that calculator works and things like that is really helpful. Anything else about the UK CAT and BMAT? I don't think so. Like I said, I didn't do very well in the UK CAT. Don't worry, it's not the end of the world. Like I said, if you just strategically apply to medical schools, it'll be okay. Yeah. Okay, so the next stage is personal statement and reference. So personally, how did I do the personal statement? Well, you go back to this list that I keep mentioning of all your work experience, all your extracurricular, all your supercurricular, which is the academic stuff. And yeah, you make that master list of everything you have ever done in your entire life. Then what you want to do is do some research into the universities and what skills they require of students, or specifically what they want of students. And there's this like buzzword, transferable skills. And what universities want is they want you to tick all these transferable skills that are required of a doctor. So, for example, teamwork, leadership, communication, empathy, professionalism, all sorts. There's a lot of them. And if you just type into Google qualities of a good doctor, you will have a ton come up. And what I did was write down all the possible lists of transferable skills that a doctor would need, and try to match them with my list of achievements and work experience. So made sure that every skill was covered by something that I had done. For example, let's have a look. So working in a hospice, I matched with empathy. Now, a lot of these will overlap because working in a hospice matches with a lot of things like communication, responsibility, punctuality, professionalism, all these kind of things. But if you have enough kind of experiences to cover all the skills, then you're set. Okay, so I matched them all up. I ended up with a very, very complicated color-coded file of everything and all the skills that they could match to. But then what you need to do is kind of weave them together into sentences. And how I did this is like this link of three things. So first thing is your achievement. So what did you do? I could talk about my gymnastics. The second one is a skill that represents. So I think I matched that to teamwork or maybe discipline or commitment or something like that. But let's go with teamwork. And then you want to match it to something that you saw on your work experience. Like, why is that relevant to medicine? You know, what is the point of that? And I could talk about MDT meetings, so multidisciplinary team meetings, which are basically meetings in hospitals where lots of different professionals, they can be, as I said before, from lots of different specialties or even professions, all come together and discuss a patient in order to improve patient care, really. So those three things all match together. So it's saying, you know, what you did, why that's important and why it's relevant to medicine. And if you can cover all your skills and with those kind of three things, then again, you've pretty much ticked every box you possibly can, which is ideal. The other thing, as I said before, is that making things personal is really important. So I could say, yes, I did gymnastics, but a lot of other applicants probably did gymnastics as well, or football, or swimming, or something like that. Maybe making it specific to you, or using like a specific story makes things a lot more interesting. For example, Japan Super Science Fair, what I was talking about before. I could say, yeah, I went to the Japan Super Science Fair and that demonstrated research, but actually the oh, that's another teamwork example. Oh no, we'll make it leadership. So actually the anecdote I used for this was when I went to Japan, we, as I said, you met lots of different students from all over the world, and we were doing ice-breaking tasks where we had to make a toy car out of some wheels, elastic bands, and some plastic. And I was in a group with several non-UK students, and so obviously English wasn't their first language, and everybody was a bit kind of shy. So I had to be the one to take a leadership role and kind of you know, ask questions and delegate roles and listen to what everybody has to say and kind of put it into, you know, implement it. And so everybody got a chance to make this car. And in the end, we won like the race for this toy car, which was fab. But do you see how using a little story like that really helps to demonstrate the skills, the leadership, and the communication, and the kind of empathy, and being able to kind of understand that, you know, people different ways of communicating. So that's really important, and it makes you stand out. And it's a lot more interesting for people to read about than I did Duke of Edinburgh. Again, not bashing Duke of Edinburgh. Duke of Edinburgh is fab. I did Duke of Edinburgh. But like I said, make it personal. It's far more interesting. In terms of kind of the macro structure of the personal statement, you want an intro talking about why you want to do medicine, which I think is a really bad question, because there's never one reason why you want to do medicine, and a lot of people want to do medicine for the same kind of reasons, in which case it's never going to be unique. So what's the point even wasting characters on the personal statement, in the intro? But it's still important at the end of the day, because they need to know that you have a genuine motivation to do medicine. So that would be your intro. Then you would have your body of text, where you need to tick color, you need to cover all of those transferable skills, and you need to prove that you have those transferable skills with your own achievements, and then you need to say why it's relevant to medicine. So there's those three things again. And then your conclusion will kind of reiterate that and say that one of the important things, especially in your work experience, to cover is that what they want to see is that you have an insight into medicine, and they want you to talk about the great things about medicine. Yeah, cool, medicine's fab. But they also want to make sure that you understand that the less glamorous parts of medicine, because medicine is hard work, and patient expectations are very, very high, and there are some really difficult parts to being a doctor. So being able to say that you've seen that, and that you recognize that, and that you still want to do medicine is really important, because they don't want you to turn up to medical school and realize actually it's not all rainbows, and then drop out again. They want to see that you understand how important the challenges are as well. So again, like I said, reiterating why you want to do medicine in the conclusion, something really, really brief. Bear in mind with the personal statement, again, some of you might already know, but it's only 4,000 characters. And it is the bane of your life trying to cut down that character count from, I think mine was 8,000. It's really not fun. And also, the other thing that's really, really difficult with personal statements is that everybody has a different opinion of what is good. And I passed my personal statement round to 4 doctors, 2 medic mentors, 3 teachers, and my parents. And they all had different opinions. But eventually I kind of made it into what I thought was the final perfect draft. And I sent it into my head of year, who really didn't like it, and was kind of drawing lines through it and saying, we need to cut this out, and you're not on the right lines. And and it's heartbreaking having, after all that hard work, somebody saying, oh, no, it's not right. And when so much is on the line, your entire future is kind of resting on this, it's really stressful. But at the end of the day, you have to do what you feel is right. And don't worry if different people have different opinions. Just think about how valid those opinions are. For example, I had a consultant look at my personal statement, which is great, but also their practices, they went through the medical application process 40 years ago, and it may not be as up to date as perhaps one of the teachers who deals with all the medical applicants coming through the school every year. Just weigh that up. One of the other really important parts of the application as well is the reference, which a lot of people forget. And again, it completely depends on the scene. So, for example, my school wouldn't let me read it, but they would read it out to me, and I could say kind of no, can you change things? With the reference, if there's anything you can't fit in your personal statement, it is fantastic to kind of pop in the reference. And you want to make sure that your reference is as amazing as your personal statement, because it looks a bit strange if your personal statement is glowing and then your reference, which is the only part of your UCAS application that somebody else doesn't look as good. And make sure you check the quality of your reference. On to the interview. So, how would you revise for an interview? You need to know your personal statement inside out as well. That's probably the first thing. As you probably know, there are different kinds of interview. Most are now MMI, so multi-mini interviews, which are different stations that test all those different transferable skills that I keep talking about. The other one is panel, which tends to be kind of more traditional. I had 3 MMIs and 1 panel. And yeah, so what I did was go back to that list that we made. So go back to that list you made, make sure that you have a idea of all those transferable skills again and how you would relate them to what you do, and work experience. And then I would just answer every possible question you can think of, whether that's through books that you found, or even if you search on the internet, medical school questions, then that is ideal. Some of the questions, so there are different kinds of questions. So there might be ethics questions, there might be I was saying before, questions on current news topics. In which case I'd say just keeping up to date with BBC Health or something is ideal. Okay, so other things to do is wider reading. Like I said, maybe looking at some of the current news topics. Personally, and this is not selling, this is genuinely what I did, I read the Medic Mental Masterclass book and answered all the questions in the interview skills book, and just making sure that you have an idea about how to answer most medical questions. And then when you do go into interview, try and make sure that they don't sound rehearsed in any way. There are quite a lot of role play stations. For example, in one of my interviews, one of my MMIs, I had to put a nappy on a baby doll. And there was an actor there as well who was the mother, who was supposed to be quite depressed. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, putting that nappy on the baby. And then I had to put a baby bra on, and all the poppers were wrong. And I was trying to talk to the mum as well. And it was all about this multitasking. But at the end of the day, what the examiners were looking for wasn't how well I could put that nappy on the baby. It was how well I could communicate with the mother and kind of multitask, because at the end of the day, it's the mother and the baby's health that's important. Both their physical and mental well-being, not whether I can put the nappy on, which I didn't. Okay, so like I said, practice with everyone, practice with yourself, practice with your parents, practice with your teachers. It's really helpful. Yeah, make sure you know your medical ethics, the pillars of medical ethics, because you can pretty much tackle any question with that. So autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. Have a look into that. And then the final thing I had to say was, as I said before, you need to get your grades. And so not only do you have to be juggling all this stuff with your personal statement, your interview, your university entrance exams, but you also need to keep on top of your studies and get those grades. So what happens once you're here? Cardiff is amazing. So I chose Cardiff because, first of all, I like Wales. I think the people in Wales are really nice and they're just super friendly. Like even now, you'll be sitting on the bus and somebody will make conversation with you, and it's almost strange, but they're just really, really nice. And I love that environment. I love that about Wales. They have great accents as well. Um, and yeah, so when I got to Cardiff, the first term was pretty tough. Um, really hard work. Basically, they try to get your kind of science level up to kind of the same as everybody else's. So you're all on like a level basis for Christmas, after Christmas. And it was really hard work. It was 9 till 5, lectures, tutorials. It seemed to have slipped me that Cardiff does full body dissection. So, the second week or whatever it was, when we were taken to meet our silent teachers, and I not realised that we were dissecting dead bodies. That is one of the best things, again, I've ever done in my life. And it is an amazing privilege to be able to do that. There are very, very few medical schools that do that now. But it's, an amazing way to learn. And I have so much respect for the donors. And like I said, the medical school take it very seriously. But that was just an amazing experience. What else did we do? We've done some awesome things in medical school. Even today, we were doing fundoscopy, which is like looking at people's eyes with an ophthalmoscope. And we had to put tropicamide in our eyes, which dilates your pupils. And I can only just see at the moment. My pupils kind of gone back to normal. But it's great. You get to try awesome things. What else did we do? We were doing venipuncture on each other a couple of weeks ago, which was fun. I only had a few bruises. Just a note on this: none of this is compulsory. You do volunteer. They don't make you put drugs in your eyes. Don't worry. Yeah, I mean, I think like the main point here is that a lot of students come back after the week, and they've been to 4 lectures over the week, whereas medical students, we come back at the end of the week, and I can say I've dissected a dead body, I've given vaccinations in flu clinic for a day, I've taken blood from one of my friends, and I've put drugs in my eye. And the amazing things you see on placement, the amazing things you do, at 18, 19, there are experiences that are amazing and that a lot of people will never get in their entire lives. So that's the best thing about medicine. And although it is hard work, and it's volume that's the hard work, not necessarily the content, it's worth it. So far, I'm loving it. And wherever you get into medicine, if it takes you 3, 4, 5 years to get into medicine, if you do it postgraduate, if you have to take a gap year, then that's fine. You will get there eventually, and it's so worth it. So that was the main thing I wanted to say. And I'm happy to take any questions anybody has about my own experiences or about Cardiff, or anything. Okay, let me figure out. I'm kind of computer illiterate, so this should be fun. So, if anybody has any questions? Okay, so we've had a question about the supercurricular thing I was talking about, which again, I don't know whether supercurricular is a genuine thing, but it's a way that I classify everything that's academic on top of your normal curriculum. So whereas things like sports or music would be completely aside from school, supercurricular is things that you probably do in school or opportunities that you kind of get through school or that are kind of based on your academics. So a lot of schools may offer kind of biology Olympiad or Cambridge Chemistry Challenge or basically any kind of academic prize or exam that is outside of your normal curriculum. And some of the great things that I was talking about that I would say came under this section were science fairs. Getting involved in those is fantastic because it involves research and presenting and communication, all these great things. And if you pick a topic to study, I mean, I didn't, as I was saying before, for the Rolls-Royce Science Prize that I did, that was on solar power, and the Japan Super Science Fair was on biofuel, so chemistry and physics, which is still great. But if you could do one on biology or even better, medical treatments or diseases or conditions or cutting edge research, they're fantastic to talk about. And as I was saying before, if in an interview they do ask you a question about particular kind of academic areas that you're interested in, and you've done a lot of research in one of these areas, then go for it. You've got tons to talk about, and you're pretty much an expert in that area. So they can be really helpful. And same again with what I was saying about EPQs. In terms of the Association of Medical Research conference that I went to, they still have those conferences, I believe, every year, and it's just something where the university that hosts them, Cardiff Research Society, I think, was hosting this one, and then may say that students can come, and that is probably going to be on a competitive basis. It's kind of a great way to understand how a conference works, and in medicine, you probably will end up going to conferences or presenting your work in conferences. So being able to say that you've been to one, and you understand what they're for and about how they're important for sharing information, and being able to improve medicine, another key word, not just locally, not just nationally, but internationally, then it's brilliant. And at the end of the day, it's all to improve patient care. Recognize that, then that's fantastic as well. Anybody still not clear on what I classify as supercurricular? Anyone? I can run through a bit more of what Cardiff is like, about kind of the course. And Cardiff is a CBL course, a case-based learning course. And at first I thought that lecture-based would be my kind of thing, because it's kind of where you get told what you need to be told. But actually, after coming to Cardiff, I can't sit through more than 2 lectures in a row. And case-based learning is actually fantastic. So I think you don't really know until you experience it. So if you do ever get the chance to sit in the lecture theatre or to practice like mock PBL, CBL sessions, then yeah. Okay, so in terms of, I just had a question about the biology Olympiad. I think I was in year 13 for that. And like I said, I actually dropped a lot of things for year 13 because I don't consider myself naturally intelligent. I have to work really hard to get my grades. But I think biology Olympiad was something that I was put in for by my school. I don't really think I had that much of a choice. And I was like, to be honest, I'll just do it and see what happens. And it's kind of biology, a lot of kind of extra curricular biology. So it's a lot about kind of using the knowledge you already have to apply to slightly more difficult questions, which is exactly what medicine is. So it's kind of relevant. And I was really lucky to get a gold in that, considering that, you know, I didn't really revise or anything. But that's what the biology Olympiad was. And in terms of the EPQ, I did that in my AS year. So I did that in year 12. I think, wait, no, I didn't. I did it in the summer of year 12, actually. So we had the option to take it as, so we had Wednesday afternoons off, or to do something. And we had the option to do EPQ every Wednesday afternoon. But at the time, I took critical thinking instead, which was not a smart choice because critical thinking doesn't count for medicine. Neither does general studies. You know, had any impact in my entire application at all. But then I thought, you know what, I should probably do an EPQ, and kind of did one over, I think it was kind of the start of the summer. To be honest, I had it done by the start of the summer. I just kind of sat down, did my research, filled out my logbook, and started kind of writing. If it's something you feel really that you're really interested in, then you know it's not too difficult. You know, yeah, I think I just did a little bit every night, and then had it done quite easily. And again, now it was over 5,000 characters. 5,000 words. It was probably on 8,000 words, and I had to cut it down. That was again the hardest part. But like I said, I think I got an A for that, not an A star. But like I said, it wasn't the qualification that was important. It was the talking point and kind of the knowledge that I had in interview. And I think I actually used it in my Cardiff interview, actually, because like I said, a lot of medical schools are interested in research, and it's something a lot of students. So being able to talk about that was interesting. And yeah, if you know anything about the medical school's own research, so some medical schools may be doing some awesome new research, and if you've done, you know, if you've looked into that yourself and you can bring it up, then they, you know, will really appreciate that. They know that you genuinely are interested in their medical school and that you know a bit about their research, and you've done the research yourself. You know, perhaps you would be a fantastic, you know, addition to their medical school and do some awesome research for them and with them. which is great. So nobody else has any other questions. Then I guess my take-home message was, I hope I gave you some tips and some ideas about the application process, and kind of how to go about it, some of the things that I did, which again, like I said, you definitely don't have to do all of them, but they're just kind of a guide, an idea of some of the things that you can talk about. And it's okay. So applying to medicine is probably the hardest thing I've done ever, and it's hard work and it's stressful. But once you get onto the other side, and one day you will, it is amazing, and you feel like you are in such a privileged position, and every day is amazing. And but it's everything that I wanted it to be, and I'm really glad it is, because after all that work, it would have been a shame if it wasn't. But no, it's fantastic. And if anybody's thinking about Cardiff, Cardiff's awesome. Like, come to Cardiff. And yeah, medicine's amazing. So thank you very much for listening. Answered some of your questions. Okay. Okay, bye.